police raid on their mansion resulting in
This is the end for Andrew Tate. No, it's not.
Andrew and Tristan Tate being held in a Romanian jail cell for over 3 months, all the way to spending 30 days under house arrest with some of the most serious charges possible. It wouldn't be a stretch to say the Tate brothers have had a wild ride for the past 6 months, but with the recent developments in their case, it seems like this is just the beginning. Hi, I'm the Internet Anarchist. I create weekly YouTube documentaries, and today, we'll be taking a look at the recent news and developments in the Tate brothers saga. Following their move from jail to house arrest on the 31st of March 2023,
guys, I want to know, man.
Tristan would receive a warm welcome from their inner circle and hardcore fans.
Let me give it a chance,
It was from then on that Andrew would begin to reinforce the idea that the Matrix had plans to kill him. In his mind, if they weren't able to silence him in jail, they would do so with a bullet. I prepare my body to absorb the brutal kinetics of piercing lead. As all silencing attempts fail and stage 3 approaches, I anticipate a bullet will be the chosen utensil of pacification. I can only pray and prepare. I will force myself to breathe the best I can, I promise. If they kill me, I love you all. A message that would really resonate in the hearts and minds of his most dedicated fans, with many believing that the Matrix was after Andrew for the message that he preached, and that the entire criminal investigation was simply a ploy to keep him down and silenced. A ploy that massively backfired, resulting in Andrew looking like the underdog going up against an all-powerful institution. And the fact that he was placed in a cell for 90 days without any charges added some credence to this idea. The Streisand effect seems to be in full swing. The Matrix was trying to silence the Tate brothers, which only made their side of the story more convincing, or that's at least how it seemed on the surface, as in the short months later that followed, their transition to house arrest would be flooded with new evidence. Heated interviews,
making the point that there is
actually accused me of a crime,
emotional or psychological manipulation.
I've asked you a question,
and serious litigations that completely turned things upside down. On the 10th of May 2023, The Sun released an article detailing the real reasons the Tate brothers were released from jail and moved into house arrest. The 80-page court order.
Wait, it's what?
Real reasons the Tate brothers were released from jail and moved into house arrest. The 80-page court order that the article was based on outlined the true nature of the investigation. Prosecutors from DICOT, Romania's organized crime busters, had attempted to argue the Tates were a danger to the alleged victims. Quote, prosecutors from DICOT, Romania's organized crime busters, had attempted to argue the Tates were a danger to the alleged victims, but the judges at the Court of Appeal disagreed and said the brothers on house arrest would ensure a fair investigation. In the judge's eyes, the investigation wouldn't be negatively impacted by the Tates being under house arrest, even stating, quote, the Tates were not a risk as they were highly educated, lacked a criminal record, and were socially integrated. This proved that the Tate brothers weren't released as a result of the prosecution's lacking evidence, but due to the judge wanting to make the investigation fair. Speaking of investigation and evidence, DICOT stated that they, quote, have thousands of documents and pieces of evidence, even going further to say that the investigation...
Jack, couldn't they have possibly gone to that conclusion that they were like a highly educated, criminal record free, and gone to house arrest, put them on house arrest earlier than that? I feel like then they were put into jail for like 6 days or something like that, or like 30 plus, something like that. I feel like that conclusion is pretty easy to get there. And if you're gonna get there, might as well get there early so that people don't go to fucking jail if they be at home. But I don't know. I digress.
Into them will be complete by July, which
them.
could indicate that the Tate brothers would be charged within the month of June, possibly going into
I think
July.
they should.
Going from jail to house arrest was a win for the Tate brothers, but the
okay. They care. You say who cares? They care, and I think to a certain degree, I think you should care to. At least not care about maybe them if you don't care about them, but care about the concept of it, right? Because that's the justice system. So like, you should care.
The investigation was nearing a conclusion and seemed to be backed by a mountain of evidence. By the 1st of June 2023, Andrew would go on an interview with the BBC. It was his first interview after being released. However, it wouldn't be a beneficial one, as the encounter would quickly become extremely combative within minutes.
Have you raped anybody?
Absolutely not.
Have you trafficked anybody?
Absolutely not.
The first section of the interview was mostly spent discussing things that Andrew had said in the past, and how they may relate to the current investigation. Do you catch that tantalizing scent? Well, that's the signature aroma of today's spot. The reporter didn't appear to be concerned with Andrew's stay in prison, and mostly brought up out-of-context quotes from his past posts on YouTube, the courses on his old website, and various other sources, many of which that have been already taken down or deleted.
Women who are going to court to accuse accuse you of rape and human
Sophie hasn't gone to court. Sophie doesn't exist.
I'm describing women who have
The
spoken
video
to
she was referring to is from Andrew's webcam business course.
Charges. The first one you mentioned, the rape one's already been thrown out by a judge because there's no evidence of it.
Throughout the interview, Andrew claimed all quotes were either taken out of context or denied ever even saying anything like it.
I remember this
He
interview, we
even
watched it.
denies taking down his old website.
No website's been taken down. My website is the same. It's been the same for a very long time.
The comments on this website, on the original website, have been taken down, and I wonder
It is
why.
true that some of her references to a few podcasts were taken at face value, but the issues of his old website were concerning. His old courses that were meant to teach men how to start a webcam business that clearly took advantage of women. Andrew would go on to claim that no one was speaking out about the
Okay. Guys, listen.
webcam business.
Guys, I'm not making any conclusions. I'm trying to put the words and understand the data or what's being shown. It said, yeah, I mean, that is... Jesus. Okay.
That clearly took advantage of women. Andrew would go on to claim that no one was speaking out about the case, other than the imaginary individual that Legacy Media created, whilst denying his involvement with a webcam business. These claims become harder to believe when you take a look at the documents regarding Andrew's case.
Go back. Oh, you guys can see it? Oh, because my camera. Oh, my bad. Sorry.
Courses that were meant to teach men how to start a webcam business.
Well, I think if you're a normal human, you can definitely understand how that would be weird. If you don't, I mean, I'm not even bother explaining. It's like you're kind of socially backed up for sure.
That clearly took advantage of women. Andrew would go on to claim that no one was speaking out about the case, other than the imaginary individual that Legacy Media created, whilst denying his involvement with a webcam business. These claims become harder to believe when you take a look at the documents regarding Andrew's case. What followed was a transcript of Andrew's conversation with one of the victims. He explained his
Michelle says, "Oh, dude, the girl signed up for this, brother. I think the guys and the ruse initially are described as like seduction into that shit, whatever, and then you mixing that is cooked. I mean, what are you talking about? What does not do?
His business model, referenced his courses, and stated that he wanted her to come and live with him in Romania. Andrew quoting, "You're not stupid, and you probably guess how I make so much money. I have to hide
it was written on the screen.
The victim saying, "Webcam?" with Andrew replying, "For a long time, I did this with a team of girls who were..."
Why is it so loud?
The company was fake, but that's how I watched my dirty money.
Why is it so loud?
And asking, how can I start a webcam business? So I started charging men to teach them. Parts of the document even detail how Andrew allegedly used women to launder money and had the phrase property of Tate tattooed on their bodies. According to Andrew, all this information was fabricated by the Matrix to slander his name. The interview turned debate would eventually become so heated that Andrew's lawyer had to step in.
Agreed to do an interview where you are going to ask questions that are going to give us the opportunity to clarify some things. These are very loaded questions, and so far, I'm sorry, I have arranged this and I'm talking right now.
Chat, people that don't know about the internet and media don't understand this, right? But there are things that takes a lot of explanation to do sometimes in these contexts. It's why media people they send in a wide variety of question to the lawyers or the publicist, and then what happens then is that they know what's gonna happen. They have a little bit of an idea, right? And when they show up in person, they ask those questions. I think if this person went out of that line of questioning and asked and said things that are much more complicated and would have to be prepared for whatever the fuck in order to explain better, well then she's just wrong. It makes her just a bad interviewer. You just can't do that. In fact, the lawyers there is that they agreed before on what the question line would be, and the person behind is like, yo, dude, you're not doing that. So that's how that works. That is how these things work. That's not an admission or what. That's just like.
So these are very loaded questions, and this is not.
The rest of the interview was directed at the other aspects of Andrew's life, such as his impact on young men and claims of charity work, with Andrew stating that he gives $25 million to charity annually. Finally, the interview would close on an interaction that seemed almost comical.
How do I know what they agreed on? Because the lawyer is stepping in. I think that's enough evidence. Otherwise, they would not have let the girl in. Because if they didn't agree on something, why would the lawyer talk? They agreed to the question beforehand. Oh my god, people had no fucking media knowledge in
Do you
chat.
believe
Insane.
you're the most influential man on the face of the planet?
I'm the most Googled person on the planet.
Do you believe you're the most influential man on the face of the planet?
I'm the most Googled man on the planet.
That statement would have been true back in December 2022, but current Google Trends tell a different story. Two versions of the interview would be uploaded to the internet. A shorter 12-minute version posted to the official BBC channel on YouTube, and the full 38-minute version posted to Andrew's.
Last pause. I swear, last long pause, okay? Chat. It's like if an interviewer tries is he gonna say he's gonna come to my house and interview me in this room right now, right? With you guys watching it. And I say, okay, but what is the interview about? And they say, okay, well, tell us about Kick and Twitch and how you got there. And we're gonna ask you how you got there, who you met, who you talked to, who are your agents. I'm like, okay, that's all good. And they tell me all the questions. And the lady shows up here, right? And we're starting to talk, whatever. And then she says, okay, what about the ties to Gamba and what people have been saying about the gambling implications? And it's like, okay, well, on the fly, this is a complicated topic that has multiple parts and would be long to address, and would take some things that literally takes time to develop. And if you were to go on that route, right, to have all the facts laid out, right, so that you don't look like a fucking dumb fuck for forgetting something, whatever, because you have to prepare for that shit. So if they're wrong about something, if she comes in and she says something that's out of the line of questioning, well, she's wrong. And I think that she was.
His Rumble page, the latter gaining over 9 million views compared to the 3 million views on BBC's version. 3 days later, Andrew would make a follow-up statement to address the Matrix, giving them his demands for any further interviews. Firstly, Andrew made the claim that legacy media failed the public by not asking interesting questions and instead focusing on what he said in the past.
I thought that even the BBC, in its absolute arrogance and hubris, would be smart enough to come to me after 6 months, being the first interview I gave to The Matrix, and be smart enough to ask questions people were genuinely interested in.
It went on to state that the BBC took clips from his older podcast and began creating a narrative that he was a human trafficker. Andrew also ignored the reference to his old webcam courses. To make sure that he wouldn't be questioned like that again, Andrew announced his new requirements for any future interviews with anyone that he thought was part of the Matrix. He wanted $50,000 donated to charity and a box of chocolates.
$50,000, so we'll feed over 60,000 children for wasting an hour of my time, plus a box of chocolates. That is my fee from this point forward.
This begged the question, who was Andrew referring to when he said news outlets outside the Matrix? Was he referring to outlets that saw him as innocent, or those that presented facts about the case? The next interview was on the 12th of June.
Yeah, it seems like this guy that makes this video. Guys, I have not been a Tate Glazer at all. I've been on both sides, based on facts, and I think this guy making the video, I don't think he understands how that works either.
23, with someone who Andrew claimed was outside the Matrix, no other than Valuetainment. He had several interviews with Andrew before, and this one was no different. The main topic being how the Matrix was attacking Andrew, and stories from his time in jail.
And jail as a whole, I mean, there's so many stories I can tell, there's so many different ways I remember it. There were times I laughed. I will sit and say some of the best days of my life were in jail.
Get out of here.
Andrew would eventually talk about the criminal case, although in a limited fashion. He claimed the events that the BBC discussed happened 9 years ago, which is odd, since his indictment is based on events that occurred in 2022. The video would become an instant hit with both Andrew Tate's fans and haters, garnering over 10 million views on YouTube. The narrative of the Matrix attack was pulling a public sentiment towards Andrew, and he intended to take full advantage of it. His first emergency meeting stream happened a few days later, and had over 400,000 concurrent viewers. During the meeting, Andrew stated that there were parts of the case that he couldn't discuss, but he made several claims about what they were accused of. He claimed the case had nothing to do with the webcam business, but was all about stealing money from girls' TikTok accounts.
Hey Tristan, you used to run a webcam studio. I no longer run one, but yes, I used to. How is this linked into the case? That has nothing to do with the case. But the narrative is that I formed a criminal gang when my net worth was already over $100 million. We allegedly formed this gang to steal money from TikTok accounts. That is the narrative. That is what I have been arrested for. And this is the first time publicly I could finally clear that up.
The Tate brothers gave the impression that the entire case was built upon lies, and that it was highly unlikely that they'd be charged with anything, but this would be far from what happened. On the 21st of June 2023, the Tate brothers and their 2 associates would be formally charged with human trafficking in continuous form, the formation of criminal organization, and rape in continuous form.
What does indicted means?
Dicot's latest press release added several damning details about the case. In addition to the original allegation, the Tate brothers were charged with, quote, illegal access to the computer system, alteration of the integrity of computer data, instigation and hitting or other violence, as well as, quote, the 7 victims identified during the criminal investigation were subjected to forced labor. Of the 7 victims who were sexually exploited by the organized crime group, 3 became civil parties in the criminal process. Dicot went on to state that they had confiscated 15 properties with the IFOV County, 15 luxury cars, shares within 4 commercial companies, and $3 million in cryptocurrency. The investigation was complete, and they were going to trial, but in Dicot's own words, situation that cannot in any way defeat the principle of presumption of innocence. Just a day later, Andrew would address the situation by complaining about the bad press and claiming the media was corrupt.
For 1 year they've attacked me, and they will not stop. I've been offered to sell my soul. All I had to do was shut up. If I would have sold my soul to a large corporation, and then this attack happened, then this large corporation would speak to the media, and the media, they wouldn't be treating me as an enemy, they would treat me as an ally. All I had to do was sell my soul, and I refused.
Andrew made sure not to mention the case in any capacity. He was more concerned with swaying the public opinion. He wants the public to believe that the entire case was a conspiracy created by the Matrix. But looking back at Andrew's own statements about this webcam business, the reason he moved to Romania for the sack of corruption and courses that he sold, it doesn't seem like an attack. The evidence in the case describes Andrew's strategy of recruiting women, which is identical of which he taught in his own course. He would approach women with the intention of getting them to do sex work, making them fall in love with him, and then bring them back to Romania to work for him. This strategy bears a striking similarity to the one used by convicted Romanian trafficker Leo.
Am făcut un trafic de persoane cu fete. Ne-am dus în Italia. Am făcut prostituție cu ele.
Romanian authorities have had issues with crimes of trafficking for a long time, and organizations like the Council of Europe's group of experts on action against trafficking in human beings, also known as Greta, have gotten involved, instructing Romanian authorities to prioritize action against human trafficking. It's safe to say that Romanian authorities have a vested interest in seeing the case through. On the 29th of June, Andrew decided to go on another interview to further discuss his current predicament. He would also continue to frame the charges as a subjective Matrix attack and generally downplay the evidence brought forwards.
So I have a narrative which is countering their narratives that they control, and they feel like that I need to be punished for that. And they're massively influential and powerful, and now I find myself in the position I'm in with a Matrix attack.
Apparently he got too big and his message was too controversial, and the human trafficking charges were completely unexpected.
I knew that some kind of attack was coming. I didn't expect to get hit with this. Human trafficking's insane.
Considering what he said on a previous interview with James English, it doesn't seem at all unrelated.
75 women worked for me at the peak of it all. But that was a mistake because...
Nah, it is very complicated. And I think everybody out there, everybody is oversimplifying everything. This seems like a fucking like a mess.
Because when you have a bunch of girls working for you like that, the only way you can motivate them is with money.
Because not a lot is being released or published, so we don't know shit. We don't know anything yet. Okay, not anything. The things that are surfacing could be selectively surfaced. We don't know, man. Like what do you guys act like you're the fucking judge, jury, people? You know everything. This is incredibly complicated.
Started, the girls worked for me because they loved me, right? That's the old school.
I go to both sides, exactly. So that's why I'm being hands off about this shit.
We're on our way to the top together. But when you get too big, you can't have all these girls in love with you. I mean, you can only so much. Like, we're all human, right? So I cut down to like a special forces team of around 8 girls. And that's where I made my most money. When I had 4 girlfriends, my brother had 4 girlfriends. I was turning over $400,000 a month.
The story of the Tate brothers is a long and fascinating one packed with unanswered questions. Why did they take down their old website and courses? And was Andrew really predicting the Matrix next move? Or is it all just an attempt to cover his tracks? There are 2 main ways that people view the Tate brothers' current situation. One side believes it's entirely a product of the Matrix, and the other side assume that the crimes of his past are finally catching up to him. Andrew is yet to be proven guilty, and in the eyes of the law, he is still innocent. However, the coming months of court proceedings ratings will certainly put that to the test. Many people believe
Fair enough.
Andrew to be the most hated person on the internet, but that's not true. Click the video on screen to find out who truly is the most hated person.
It's me. I'm the most hated person. It's me. It's me. Aware, Wokage aware, Wokage aware. What is that?